talk about our film this week. This week I watched a film called I Care a Lot on Netflix. Somebody brought it up to me and I saw it trending a little bit, like, go check this out. And then that's what I decided to talk about this week. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're talking about right now. Yeah, I care a lot. She even says it. She even says the title of the movie. It's even more exciting than when they say the title of the movie in the movie. I They did that with WandaVision too. I've been watching WandaVision now for like when they say the title of it, she says that in the courts and stuff. She's like, I care so much. Yeah, you care. You care a whole lot about yourself. And that's kind of the whole thematic idea of this movie. Is that we follow characters that suck. They're just shitty people. And so if that's hard for you to swallow right off the bat and you're bored with that, then it's not the movie for you. But know that there's only one way to have a satisfying ending with characters like this. You don't want to see them win or succeed, right? The whole time I'm watching it, I'm thinking, we want to either see, we're like, do we want her to win, Marla, or do we want Roman to win, right? The gangster she's facing off against. It's like, it's two shitty people, though. So why do we care about either of them? And no, it actually ends up being like a little fake out ending that I'll get to. Like, it's like, oh, this sucks. They're just going to go on and keep doing shitty shit. But then no, we get kind of the poetic justice ending. So that made it work. And, it's not like we've never watched stuff where we root for bad people. Like, just watch The Sopranos. Tony's not a good guy, but we care. So it's not like that's a new thing. So that's what you have to mentally get yourself in that mindset when you're watching this. You're not going to really like them, right? But it's to the point where we really don't like them. Like, I really didn't like them. Anybody. Except maybe the mother who's the victim of all this, right? I didn't really... Right, I didn't know anything about it going in. Didn't know what kind of movie it was, nothing. And I like that, too. So I just go in with an open mind. And immediately as it started to get underway, I wondered, is this based on a true story? Because when you think about it, like, you're like, does this happen to people? And I'm sure it does to an extent, but maybe not to this extent. Maybe it does. It's not based on a true story, but it takes a potential real idea and just dramatizes it to the extreme. And we have quite an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept. Definitely worth, like, making a movie out of, whoever came up with the idea, they had a nice idea and worked with that. Because it's fucked up, right, overall. And you're like, Jesus, if this really happens. Yeah, I mean, there is exploitation of the elderly in reality, I'm sure. This one is just the extreme possible scenario. Here's where it gets tough, though. How are we supposed to care about these main characters? The opening sequence with the voiceover immediately makes it clear that we're dealing with shitty people. Our protagonist is a lioness, as she puts it, but really she's just a bad person, and she justifies it by claiming that society wants to keep her down, keep her poor, and so she has to take what she wants. And to an extent, we can relate to that. There is a relatability there, but you're not going to do those things if it means harming other people at the bottom. That's how you get to the top, is by fucking over other people. That's not something we care about and can relate to. We don't like that. So it was hard to relate to this character. Very hard. To the point where I didn't at all. But it's immediately a challenge for the writers to make us empathize or sympathize with her. And yeah, I had a hard time with that. But following bad main characters is nothing new, like I said. You may hate Marla and her circle of people, but that's because you're probably supposed to hate Marla and her circle of people. The movie does a good job effectively pacing things and moving the story along. I thought there was no problems there. When we finally do get to see how Marla does what she does, it's horrible. And of course, we are introduced to Mrs. Peterson, Jennifer Peterson. And in that sequence, And she's actually the only character that we kind of root for, right? That she's the one we root for. She's a victim, and we want to see her get out of this. Um, the chickens always come home to roost, like in Wolf of Wall Street. What does he always say to Jordan? Chickens are gonna come home to roost. And Jordan's like, whatever the fuck that means. But it's true, because that's what happens with Marla too, man. I think our true start to this movie is at the end of the first act, when we learn who Mrs. Peterson really is, like who she's connected to, and that she's not innocent and everything either. It just made it even harder to root for her, even. But like, I still did, because she's just, at the end of the day, in this particular scenario, she's just an old woman who's not really responsible for any of it. She's just getting used and abused, and naturally, it turns out she does have a son, right? Jennifer Peterson, and he immediately comes off as someone you don't want to fuck with. And that's Roman, played by Peter Dinklage. After that initial break-in attempt, break her out, we get a shift in the movie. The game is truly on between Marla and Roman. That's what it becomes. It becomes a game between these two. And it's like an unraveling of events from there. Russian Mafia, right? As soon as you learn Russian Mafia, any normal person would want to get the fucking hell out of there and just call it a day. But Marla is obsessed with the idea of winning and not getting beaten by anyone, not even a fucking mobster. And that's important because, I mean, then later there's a confrontation that really defines who Marla is as a character, right? As a person. The movie becomes about who's going to come out on top, right? Who are you rooting for? And I thought the title was sort of significant. It was a really perfect title for the movie. I Care a Lot is kind of like the attitude of Marla's character. Coming off as someone who cares so much, she'll keep fighting. But of course, like I said, that's because she cares a lot about herself, her success, her authority, her power. But that is her attitude. I care so much, I'm going to do all this shit to make sure that I come out on top. And there's one line that sums up the parallel between the two main characters, right? Marla's saying that she doesn't care about that sociopath when she's talking about her mother. And it's quick, but it's important. That confrontation between them, when they finally meet, it reveals that Marla gets her sociopathic tendencies perhaps from her mother, but it also reveals that she's as twisted as any bad guy. She's as bad, if not worse, than Roman or any other crazy, murderous monster. The difference, too, in that moment is, like, Roman represents the opposite in a way because he actually cares about his mother so deeply that he's doing what he's doing for his mother, whereas she's just doing what she's doing for herself. So it's that I liked the opposing perspectives or character traits in that regard, and it does reveal Marla to be the true villain of this all. You know, it may look like typical bad guys like Roman are the ones you should be afraid of, but Marla reveals herself to be the one you should watch out for, and I liked that twist. Because you're immediately supposed to think she's not going to go. How is she going to keep? She's going to keep going through with all this. The more she learns, she doesn't give up. She just keeps fucking pulling herself back in, and then she just takes control of everything, and it's crazy. Overall, it's still the kind of story I like when writers explore. I like stories about bad people. The thing is, you have to make us care about them more. I still think you have to make us care about them more. And they tried that with her relationship, right? With Fran. I think Fran is her name. And that's the only person she really cares about other than herself. But it wasn't as powerful as I thought maybe it should have been. It's a crime drama, which is right up my alley. I love crime films. Overall, there's a poetic nature to it. She wants to be a lioness, and then she's going to bump into a lion naturally at some point, and then she's going to have to see if she can handle it. And there lies the problem as an audience. The only victim here is Jennifer Peterson, and she's abused. She's in the middle. She's like in the middle while her son and this woman fight each other. And that was the hardest part about caring overall for the story, but it doesn't mean it wasn't interesting and didn't have me locked in to see what happens. If a movie can hold you, then it's already pretty good. If it remains enthralling, it's borderline great, and if it ends beautifully, it's fantastic. This had a couple of those things, so I think overall it was still good. It kept unraveling in new and interesting ways. Even the end kept making you think, is it over like this? Is it over like this? And then the way it ends is good in terms of, in the realm of it overall, beating him using the same strategy she always has was really good. But what really made it work is that we're meant to think she's going to go on to keep doing all this bad stuff, right? She makes a deal with him, they go into business together. It's like, shit, these two shitty people are just going to keep going on doing the same bullshit. Just bad people doing bad things. And then she gets what she deserves, right? Instead. The only way you can end a movie like this with really shitty characters like this that you hate is to have them fucking, you don't want to see them win. You want to see them lose. So she gets what she deserves. It's poetic justice. And she doesn't get it from a mobster or from some other bad guy. She gets it from the same guy that she was fucking over in the beginning of this movie, right? A guy who represents all the people that she's fucked over. He's like the embodiment of all these people at the bottom that she uses and abuses and fucks over, right? And that's who takes her out. That guy comes up and just shoots her and kills her, and that made it work. Overall, that made the movie work in the end. Chickens came home to roost. Yeah, it needed to happen like that. But of course, what we need to bring up is the cast of this movie, the performances that really made the movie work even better. If you can have actors kind of push it into that next threshold, then that's great. Then you're good. They can sometimes save a shitty movie or just make a somewhat good movie or decent movie even better they make it good. And this was good because Rosamund Pike and Peter Dinklage are so great, Yeah. I also really liked the score of the movie. It fit the tone. And that's it. That's the movie I watched. That's what we talked about. That's what we're talking about. Interesting premise. So overall, here's my overall review, my rating. Interesting premise, played out with effective twists and a powerhouse cast, helped an average story and unlikable characters to give us a good movie overall. Not great, but good. I give it an 8.0 out of 10. Not any better, but not any worse than that. And that is our discussion this week. Definitely go check it out. It's on Netflix.